So Jordan Peterson tweeted something the other day that is hilarious. So he said this. Let me show you. Talked to Senator Ted Cruz's key investors, in parentheses, not donors, yesterday in Fort Worth, suggested that Republicans could offer young people the sustaining meaning of responsibility among other better stories. And then he tags Ted Cruz. And see, it says there on the left, Investor Retreat, Truth and Courage Pact. It's hilarious that Ted Cruz calls his PAC the Truth and Courage PAC. Truth and Courage. Ted Cruz. This is the guy who colossally cucked himself to Donald Trump after Donald Trump said his dad killed JFK and he wouldn't spill the beans on his wife, basically calling Cruz's wife ugly. And then Cruz was asked by the media, okay, but will you support him if he's the nominee? And Cruz wouldn't answer and said, I'm going to be the nominee. Me, I'm Ted Cruz. Me. And then, of course, after going to the RNC and saying, like, vote your conscience, he then phone banked for Donald Trump after his donors say, hey, who do you work for? You work for us. Now, you better go do what we want you to do. So there's a famous picture of him sitting there with his cucked face, phone banking for Donald Trump after getting obliterated by him in the debates. So there's a number of things to say about this. Nobody is less truthful and less courageous than Ted Cruz. I love how the fact that Peterson says his key investors, not donors, what are you talking about? What's the difference? Key investors? Was he starting some sort of private company? You're investing in the private company? And by the way, you don't think that would affect how he legislates? Of course it would affect how he legislates. By the way, Ted Cruz right now is involved in a case that's working its way through the court system. It may even be going to the Supreme Court. I don't remember what I read about that. I may have read that. But the case is he wants even more money in politics. He wants even more money in politics. So the idea that this, not donors. So in other words, Peterson's trying to be like, look, it's not corrupt. It's not corrupt. Ted Cruz is one of the most corrupt politicians that there is. This is a guy who has openly argued that if a billionaire is donating to a politician, they have free speech rights to do it. So if a billionaire wants to give millions of dollars to a politician, Cruz says there's nothing wrong with that at all. Not only is that not corruption, that's not even the appearance of corruption. That's just First Amendment protected free speech. It most certainly is not free speech. It most certainly is corruption and bribery. So he's one of the most corrupt people there is. So anyway, Peterson trying to cover his ass by saying that is hilarious. Like, no, this is one of the most odious politicians in the country, and you're meeting up with him now. But there's a more important point. The more important point is Peterson's talking to Cruz about we need to teach young people the sustaining meaning of responsibility, among other better stories. So the stories part is, how Jordan Peterson's obsessed with narratives and stories, and, you got to look at yourself as the hero in the story and try your best to live honorably and, to tell the truth or at least don't lie and stand up with your back straight and clean your room and all this stuff. So the narrative thing is classic Jordan Peterson, obsessed with stories, but telling Ted Cruz that you need to sell personal responsibility. Hey, Jordan, that's not the job of a politician. The job of a politician is to legislate on behalf of the people and represent the voters. So, in other words, if the voters say, hey, Ted Cruz, we would like a living wage out here, please. We work full-time and don't make enough money to survive. Could you help us out on that? That's Ted Cruz's job. Ted Cruz's job is, hey man, we have 45,000 people dying every year because they don't have basic health care. Can we get some universal health coverage, please? That's his job. His job is to make laws and legislate the will of the people in what's supposed to be a constitutional republic and a representative democracy. This is just a total category error. And if anything, what politicians do when they stress the personal responsibility angle of stuff is them dodging their own personal responsibility to do their job as a politician properly, to implement laws for the people. So he's, ironically, he would be dodging his own personal responsibility if he just goes out there and lectures people about personal responsibility. Look, guys, don't get it twisted. I have a guilty pleasure. My guilty pleasure is I love the motivational speaking stuff. I do. I love the self-help guru stuff. I love the arguments about show some discipline, get your ass out of bed, go do the things that you got to do. Here are the reasons why that's a good idea. I like that stuff probably even more than the next guy. Sometimes I like corny and cheesy ass quotes more than the next guy. So I have nothing against that at all. In fact, I think there's this vacuum on the left where nobody gives you that stuff while also making leftist arguments in terms of public policy. Like, I want the left to be sufficient in the art of personal improvement while also not abandoning the commitment to the community and better public policy. So I support that stuff strongly. What I do not support is corrupt Republican politicians or Democratic politicians lecturing people about personal responsibility as they destroy the country because they represent their donors, they represent billionaires, they represent corporations, as the country burns, as everybody's having a rough go of it at the moment. So this is just simply a category error, man. I mean, the fact that Jordan Peterson doesn't understand that this is not the job of a politician. The job, and by the way, also, nobody likes politicians. Have you seen the numbers? Have you seen how, Congress always has an approval rating between like 7% and 25%? Nobody likes these people. Nobody likes Ted Cruz. I'm sure his numbers are underwater. So, in a weird way, even if Ted Cruz took the advice, it would almost like besmirch the message itself. Because this unlikable, uncharismatic guy making an argument for a concept that's generally an okay and decent concept, it would like undermine that concept in a way. But again, the most important point is, for the love of God, that's not your job, Ted Cruz. And anytime you are lecturing about personal responsibility, that's a moment wasted when you could be talking about legislation that would actually help the people. But he's not in favor of legislation that helps the people at all. Not even close, not even a little bit. So, I mean, think about it, guys. Let's say every politician in America took Jordan Peterson's advice and lectured people about personal responsibility. How insufferable would that be? You got these scumbags ruining the country, and at the same time, they're finger wagging at you and telling you to get your shit together. How about you get your shit together? How about that? How about that? Unbelievable. Unbelievable, man. Imagine telling a politician, hey, you need to push the notion of personal responsibility. That would be a total diversion and deflection from the fact that these politicians aren't doing their own jobs well and they're not representing the people. Look, if you want to get into personal responsibility stuff, then go do that. Go be a motivational speaker. Go have your own podcast where you argue for these sorts of narratives all the time. I have no problem with that whatsoever. But you can't be in a position where your job is to represent the community and then you turn around and lecture people about their own individual failings. See, that's the thing, is it personalizes broader systemic problems, and that's not okay. When you pretend like, for example, like poverty is just a choice. You're just lazy. You just don't have any discipline. It's a personal moral failing on your part. That is fundamentally not true. Again, to go back to the original point, minimum wage is not a living wage in this country. You can work full time and not make enough money to survive. Is that their individual fault? Are they just not trying hard enough? Are they not pulling themselves up by their bootstraps enough? It's just not accurate. So, look, I don't know what to tell you guys. These are conversations that we were going to have with Jordan Peterson to his face. He was supposed to come on Crystal Kyle and Friends at the last minute, as you all know. He dropped out, said he has to prepare for his month-long speaking tour. Then, by the way, he went on Joe Rogan after he said, we're not doing any more podcasts. I got to prepare for my tour and rest and everything. So we're going to have these conversations with him to his face, but he had other things in mind. Now, in theory, he's supposed to come on in June or July. We'll see if that happens. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I hope it does, because even though a lot of these intellectual dark web types love to talk about how they're in favor of free discourse and open dialogue and freedom of speech and reasonable disagreements, oftentimes when they have conversations, it's kind of a circle jerk and everybody's agreeing with everybody. Well, there's some reasonable pushback. That would be good for the culture and the broader dialogue. So let's hope it happens, because there's a lot to say. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.